Hey, everybody, welcome back to the tavern. I'm your wonderful host, and it is wonderful to be back. I'm telling you, 2023, I'm excited to see what develops from this. And I've just missed you guys. It's been a while. It feels like it's been a long time. It's only been a couple weeks, and I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. But we're going to get back into this, and we're going to probably create a bunch more fun characters that you can play in your own games. Uh, Tonight, we have a wonderful guest. Mike is what I would say a very creative person because he has done things that even I didn't think about doing, which is creating spreadsheets to map out everything. And as an IT professional, I would think that would be something I would have thought about. It just didn't catch my mind, but it's okay because we have Mike here. Um, Mike, real quick, before we dive into our story and finding out what character you bring to the tavern, just give us a good 30 seconds who you are.
Sure. My name is Mike. I'm the owner of Waldo's Guide to D&D, a group of randomly generating spreadsheets that allow for DMs, writers, artists, all kinds of people to kind of use to their own benefit to create randomly generated things of all kinds of nature, ranging from stores, NPCs, travel encounters, dungeons, pirate ships, all kinds of things. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. And thank you to our friends, viewers, followers, subscribers, patrons for coming back and hanging out with us. So tonight, as we have started the new series and the way we're developing this program, always starts with an adventure hook. So tonight's adventure starts with the sound of rippling water or dripping water. The cold air pushes through the cavern system that you've been placed in. A violet and aquamarine light gives off in the distance ahead. Following it, you come to an opening. The rushing waters fall from above as the waterfall pours into the basin. The water trickles from a small stream into the cavern. Slowly, step by step, you walk out into the sunlight, and as you look over into the water, a reflection looks back at you. And what am I looking at when I'm looking in the water?
Sure. Standing about 7 feet tall, kind of upright, a little bit proper. This green shaggy hair furbolg with this light blue skin. Wearing this very basic scale mail armor. Is got a satchel going around their chest with a variety of potions and herbs kind of just fumbling out of it. Shield strapped to their back. Wearing just a very plain set of clothing, a long white t-shirt and dirty tan pants. And you can see just coming just beyond the neckline is bandage wraps, which even extend just past the sleeves on their wrists as well. And this is a character of mine, Wovoon Uera.
Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to have to do. And that is, can you pronounce it? Can you spell that for me?
Sure. Wovoon is spelled W-Y apostrophe V-U-N. Uera, Y-U apostrophe E-R-A.
All right. So, before we go any farther, is this a character that you have played before? Is this a character you created just for the tavern?
Character I'm currently playing as, yeah.
So then I'll get the reason I ask this is because there's a different way to ask questions if it's somebody you've played and somebody you've never played. So does this name mean something?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I picked it because I like the sounds, and then I also just love the apostrophe concept, so I double dipped. And one of my friends actually called me a little bit pretentious by doing the apostrophe thing. But I really like the kind of the skip in syllables that it allows you to do. So Wovoon Uera was born.
Awesome. Well, I think it's hilarious because the world that a lot of the people that work with the Misfits write with is called Guiku, and they live in a world called Zyothe. And Zyothe is Zythe apostrophe. And they absolutely love apostrophes. So when you said that, it just kind of brought me back to what I've been writing for the last 3.5 years. And I'm like, oh, I use apostrophes all the time. It's kind of how we get around certain things. It also makes you feel very elvish
Yeah,
to a lot
yes,
of people.
definitely.
So it's just kind of you run with it. Hey heroes, hey everybody. Yeah. So let's dive a little deeper into this character. What's the class that we're working with tonight?
Wavoon's a cleric, a life cleric.
Cleric. Okay. Life cleric. Okay. Customized deity, or is this
No,
something
this
that
is
most people
Eldith,
know?
goddess of nature and kind of and rebirth and just positivity.
Okay, nice. I like the spin there because normally you don't think of life, you're thinking of like Paylor or Melora, those types of those characters. But I like the positivity portion of it.
Mm.
It's great. And you said Furbolg. Now, I don't know how old you are when it comes to D&D or not, but have you ever seen like what a real Furbolg looked like back in the old days?
I I don't think I have actually. Now that I think about it.
I would definitely it's just funny to think about because but that's why my curiosity is, do you have more of that animalistic look that you see in fifth edition, or is it more of like the giant look that you saw in second and third?
Oh no, this is very much fifth edition stuff.
The modern day Furbolg. Okay. Um, Furbolg's just one of those class or one of those races that like if you look through the years, they've changed tremendously. And I think really Critical Role might have had a large influence on the way the Furbolg had developed over these last couple of years.
Absolutely.
So, uh, yeah. So, what what time of or what time period of life would Yavoon be at this point? Are we talking like mid level? Are we talking late level?
Probably on the younger side. They're about, I mean,
Okay.
younger. They're about 70 or 80 years old. But
Yeah.
for bulk time, that's maybe a young adult, maybe a teenager even.
Right.
So he's still got a lot to learn for sure.
Okay. Um, what made this character start to adventure? What was the purpose of this drive?
Sure. So Wavoon was a part of a group with his parents called the Guided Hand. Now these were a group of healers that went around the world, basically healing those that they could and helping and just being genuine good people. Um, and that kind of drive of wanting to be a part of that and help those um, kind of pushed him to go a little bit further and beyond. And at one point, when his parents retired, he continued on with another group that eventually kind of betrayed him and turned this whole thing against him. And now he's on his own. And even now, well, on his own is relative. He's with a group of people now. But from being alone and wanting to understand and fix the mistakes of his past and help make sure that things like that didn't happen again, he found the group that he's currently in, and he's very much enjoying his time with them.
Nice. And does Yavoon have any sort of special, I would say features, attributes, things that they've gathered over the last, over this adventure that you would that's unique?
Well, I mean, a bit of a min-max concept is that he has the Druid Initiative feat, specifically giving him Goodberry, and
Oh, nice.
as a life cleric, you get pretty much +3 on all your healing. So
Yeah.
Goodberries heal for 4 hit points. So he makes 40 hit points worth of healing with 1 spell casting at
Yeah.
one use spell, not even a first level spell. But it's that helps and goes a long way when it comes to small healings and short rests and things.
Oh yeah, you just right before combat, you just hand everybody a berry, and then, at least they have that 4 health just in case they get too up. Um, yeah, no, those. I've seen the concept before, and I think it's a very unique concept that can be utilized very powerful a way to utilize a life cleric is to giving them that good variability. Um, what was Evoon's turning point? When like what is the most dramatic point that Yavoon has been into yet?
Yeah. So for Wavoon, it was probably the betrayal. When he left his parents' group and moved on to a different one, that group was kind of using these clerical powers in the name of a dark deity of some kind, and Wavoon was tricked and altered and didn't realize what he was doing and who he was supporting, and eventually when it was revealed to him and when he figured it out, they brought him in for essentially a sacrifice, in which he was blessed and moved and teleported away by Eldith. And since that moment, it was kind of this solemn swear within himself to not do that anymore, to make sure that that group, the Peering Eyes, they're what they're called, didn't continue forward.
So is that kind of the lead currently for your adventure at the moment?
Yeah,
Is to track down the Peering Eyes?
Yes, and absolute shout outs to my DM. He does an amazing job with the world and the story. And Wavoon has run into his very close friend, and it's even questionable in the game of whether or not they were even lovers in the first place. But Tolaris is this, really powerful and dark entity who is scary. And the first time that Wavoon saw him, it was on sight. Immediately cast a guiding bolt, didn't even question it, and was just batted away. Not even like a second look. He was just so strong and so powerful that Wavoon just fell to his knees, basically. And yeah, that is a lot of his motivation right there. And seeing that and having that happen to him really kind of put things in perspective of just like, am I good enough to even do this in the first place? And so there's a lot of questioning and self-doubt for him that he's trying to, reconcile with his group and make sure that he helps keep them safe as well.
Does Vavoon have any sort of drive outside of this push to find these people? Is there an occupation? Is there some sort of crafting or anything that they utilize or that they're passionate about outside of the adventuring?
Absolutely. Wavoon is a skilled potion maker.
Okay.
And that is something that I kind of helped develop with my DM and the spreadsheets that I make that we'll get into later, and how they work and how they generate things. And we had a combat recently where he handed out 2 potions of Storm Giant Strength, which gives you a 29 in strength, and he gave that to his barbarian and his monk, and suddenly they were just dealing damage the whole way
yeah,
through
that
combat.
would be
It was
insane.
amazing. But yeah,
interesting.
A fantastic potion maker, and he loves doing it. And I'm very, very blessed to have a DM that allows me to kind of make these game-breaking potions in one-use items, basically. But it does mean a lot both to me and the character.
Yeah, no, it's kind of it's gonna sound very not cool, but it is at the same time. He's kind of like you're like the Furbolg version of Honey Lemon off of Big Hero 6.
Yeah,
you reach into the bag and just like, let me throw these 3 things together.
Somebody.
Yeah, see if it works. But yeah, no, that's exciting, and I think it's a unique ability that your character has that is unique to them, and that you don't have to really worry about, is this going to be something that somebody else is going to pick up on. No, this is your thing. It's your niche. It's what you enjoy doing. And it also allows you, of course, to use all those amazing tools that you've built, which is kind of funny because it sounds like this specific tool that we're talking about now was built for the character rather than for the world.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Is great. Let's see. Let me think if there's anything else I want to know about the character. So I have an interesting thing, because I always ask my players, is there anybody in Vavoon's life that is still alive that would be considered like large connections to the character.
Yeah. So Wavoon's father and mother are still alive. One of his very well, I mean, the one that kind of stabbed him in the back eventually is still more than alive.
Right.
And those are kind of the main characters that I had thought of. And there is an extra character in my backstory that I have yet to know is still alive or not. And it was a big question for a long time if Wavoon's mother was alive in the first place. Wavoon, being a cleric, has sending and would send her messages all the time. Never respond.
Never get anything back. Oof.
It's a running joke even in the game of just like how Wavoon has mommy issues because she just never talks to him.
Yeah.
Which is very funny and amusing to watch. But yeah, he has a handful of people from his life and his backstory that are still more than alive and kicking, and which is nice. It's nice to not be a character that is kind of having an empty backstory, not an empty backstory, but a backstory that there's no one there really to count on.
Right.
And I enjoy being able to reach back into the backstory and find those characters and re-engage with them.
Yes, it's that support system, right?
Absolutely.
It's the connections that make the world feel real instead of just you're just there.
Right. Yes.
No, it's interesting because I usually do ask. Every time I run a game, I ask people. I was like, give me two people out of your backstory that are still around, because it's one thing to be like, yeah, my whole family's dead and blah 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 blah. Okay, fine, but there's still somebody then. There's somebody that connects you to the world, because otherwise you're going to feel extremely lonely. And what better way to, not fall into the dark side, is the best way to put it, is like, let's pull you out of that a little bit. Somebody had to be that saving grace. But yeah, no, I like knowing that, your DM is playing those characters and enjoying developing those characters with you, because that's a fun little bounce back that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully you're not like I am on a couple occasions where they were like, I don't really have a tragic backstory, and I was like, well, you just wait a minute, I'll find one for you.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, no, my poor, I think I've talked about this before. My poor tech, he was playing a druid, of the shepherd's druid, and his whole family were like these exotic animal, almost like refugee, like they would protect them, like refugee camps.
Cool.
And well, his father was supposed to go off and deal and protect these unicorns in this magical glade. Nobody knew the drow were back. The drow pretty much corrupted the father. The father came back on nightmares with 3 other drow, and they destroyed the entire village. It was really bad. I felt really bad for him after the end of the night. Yeah, like, took out half of the family line was gone immediately. Yeah, it was a rough evening, that's for sure. But we had worked through it, and it actually became a really cool storyline to drive through. But it was just a brutal awakening for him to deal with. But they did it in strides, and the whole party came together, which was the best part about it. So
good, I'm glad to hear it.
But yeah. Well, let's see. Is there anything else special or unique that you want to tell us about your character before we move on to finding a little bit more about you?
I mean, not really. He was based off Caduceus and Caleb from Critical Role. I mean, Taliesin and Liam are incredible role players, of course. Yeah. So I'm more than honored to even make a character based on those two and their respective characters. So, I mean, beyond that, though, I mean, he's just a regular dude.
Hey, everybody can be a regular dude. It's perfectly fine, because the fun thing about D&D is that you might start as a regular dude. For some reason, the story will always make you into something more, which is fantastic. And props off to your dungeon master. He sounds like a fantastic person.
Yes.
So let's move past our story. And for people who are brand new to the show, at this point, this is where, if you want to see the character developed into an actual artwork piece. It's only $25 and it's a community-wide event. Once it's done, what we do is at the end of the show, I'll put up a Google link and you'll have a hold of that Google link for a month. During that month, check back on that Google link. If the character is purchased or if the character is made, it'll go throw up on that Google link, and you'll be able to use that token and those artworks in your own games. And that's kind of what our goal is for the year, is to get as many characters as we can to kind of give out to the audience. The only thing we ask is the $25 donation to our artist, because she actually does take time and energy to make all these things. So everything we've talked about the character will be put into bringing that character to life in artwork. And then, of course, a complimentary one will go to Mike because he's the creator of the character. And I'm going to have our tech, if he doesn't mind, just tossing up a link in the chat room to let people know how to do that. Now, part 2 is fun, because part 2 is where we get to find out about Mike. We get to find out about these amazing spreadsheets that you're talking about, and really dive into what this helps and how this helps the TTRPG community. So tell us a little bit of a backstory, Mike. What made you start coming up with spreadsheets? Like, most people hate Excel, so that's why I was kind of like, when I saw these spreadsheets, I was like, man, this dude either loves Excel or he just really needed some organization, because these things are incredible.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
It all genuinely started with a player of mine 3 or 4 years ago now, who was playing a wizard, and they came to me and they said, I want to find my spells. I never want to add more to my spell list just by leveling up. I want to find them in the world. And I said, oh, okay, that's a lot to my workload, but sure, we'll make it work for you. And so I came up with an entire list of all the spells they could potentially get as a wizard, and started marking off the spells they had. And then I realized, well, it doesn't really matter, because if the world is, kind of flesh and blood, then they'll find whatever spells they can find and take whatever they can get and get those spell scrolls and then add them to their book or whatnot. And so I had this list of spells that they could get, and I was planning on rolling a D100 to figure out which one they would get, but there was more than 100. And so I reached out to a friend of mine from my full-time job and asked them how. And they came back with this formula. It's a really simple formula: index, range, ran between 1, count A, range, and that's it. And then it'll randomly generate one item from any given list, your range.
Right.
And everything kind of took off from there. And then I built the store generator. And you can still see images of what the store generator originally was on my Patreon. It's the banner behind it of, I think it was 6 or 7 different stores, and you just kind of went to one and you looked at that, and that's had all the information. The other one had the information, compared to what it is now, where it's an actual drop down where you select which store you want, and it comes up with so much more information about weapons and items and things that it can generate, as well as gold on hand and the things that this merchant's looking for that they want to buy from the players potentially, or send them out on a quest to go retrieve for them. Mm-hmm. As well as a description for the tavern owner and the name of the shop and all these little things. Taking a lot of cues from Critical Role, Dimension 20, all these places, and putting them into a generator that can now generate billions of different combinations of things. And then that spiraled into chapters 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. And we're even working on chapter 11 currently. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it thoroughly.
Yeah, so definitely I put the link up on the chat. Definitely go check this out. Remember when I was talking to him about this outside of our talk today, and I asked him, I said, what is this? He goes, everything he's giving is for free. Utilize these things. They are super useful, and the program's already built for you. But just kind of wanted to go over so people know what you're giving away is stores, spells, cities, travel encounters, NPCs, monsters, taverns, dungeons, factions, ships. Like, if you can't find something, or you're having issues coming up with a specific portion of your game, This resource is incredible, and hats off to you, Mike, for giving it freely to the community.
Absolutely.
That's an awesome opportunity and a big help for a lot of people. One thing I've always had, not that I have issues with it, but sometimes it's like, oh, I have to sit down and take an extra 10 minutes because I know they're going to go to this tavern and they're going to ask for food. So I could have 6 things that have to be ready just in case they ask for, and 4 different types of drinks. Um, and some days, I have the time to do that. And other days I'm like, man, I don't have time for this today. Like and then I'm coming up with random things off the top of my head. And I'm like, that didn't sound good at all. But um, tools like this make life a lot easier. Um, and there are a lot of amazing resources out there that, as long as you're willing to go hunt for them, they're out there and they're very useful. But this one you don't have to go very far because your stuff's all there all in one.
Yeah, that makes me very proud with what I do, especially like keeping everything fairly close to itself. And you can always reference the other spreadsheets just by one link away. Make your own copy, relink it however you want to do it, and it's how you want to organize it within your own like Google Drive or however you want to download it to your computer and stuff.
Right. And the other thing is, like he said, is you copy this down to your own file, and then you at that point, if you understand how the spreadsheet built, you can start manipulating it yourself and adding new things to it and creating your own development at that point, which is awesome.
I've had a couple people reach out to me with updates and changes to things, and they go, "Can you add this in?" And I look it over and I see, okay, you guys have done a lot of work here, and this is all fantastic. I can absolutely add this in, and I can also make it work a little bit faster too by shortening some of the formulas and things, which makes them feel really good knowing that whatever it is that they did helped me, and it makes me feel good knowing that what the work that they did will not go to waste, and it can be done in a smoother transition, so it's not just like an outright copy of the work that they've done.
Yeah, which is awesome. Let's see. So you build all these spreadsheets, you build all these developments here. What else? Because I know we were talking, and you stated that you're running sometimes 2 to 3 games a week, so you kind of are in the same boat as I am. What does this do to cut down preparation for you?
I don't prep.
Like at all?
No, not even a little bit. The only prep that I might do is thoughts in between other thoughts. Of just if I'm cooking something and I just suddenly come up with something of just, oh, that might be neat, I implement that almost in the next game immediately. Even if it's like down the campaign stuff, I set it up so it happens almost immediately. And then when it comes to in-game things, my players will attest to the fact that I've got generators open and I'm generating stuff actively, and they just sit down and they role play. It's a perfect time personally for my players to actually talk to each other in character and experience the game a little bit more than just me telling them what's happening because I know everything, before it's going to happen type. So this, I have to sit down and I randomly generate something, I pull something up, and suddenly I've got this setup that works really well for the players and how they want to do something. And I gave an example earlier, but I asked my players at one point for a long travel if they wanted to do any random encounters, and they said, give us one. And so I pulled up one, and it happened to be, you run into a dungeon. And I quickly pulled up my dungeon generator, and I generated a dungeon, and it came up with all the monsters, and I had to generate the monsters. And it was very, very seamless and very quick. And my players were very impressed by how quickly it all came up and how it was, and how fun it was, and decent at the very least. That this random spreadsheet suddenly gave us this information for all these little rooms and things that they could take and run with, really. So my prep time has been cut down completely.
Wow, that's awesome. Because I know personally, I'm always trying to tell a different story, but it's interesting to hear the way you're saying it. It's I ask my players, what do you want to do this week? If we're going this direction, would you like to see something happen? Okay, yeah, I want an encounter. Okay, boop, 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 boop. Okay, counter generated, and you're like, wow, this, and how fast you're able to develop an entire 3-hour story on doing that. What is your normal time frame on how long you play?
Uh, Games for me last anywhere between, I would say 2 to 4 hours.
Okay.
And then I run one shots with some close friends of mine that run anywhere between 6 and 8 hours
Okay.
once every season, give or take.
Yeah. Awesome. At this point, I mean, we're kind of stepping into, what what got you into Dungeons and Dragons? I guess diving into your personal life now is kind of the next
Sure.
step, is to understand where all this comes from. It's like what was the spark for you? What got you into this, this lifestyle that we mostly all live?
I'm still not entirely sure, honestly, but I can tell you at the very least, when I was in college, I had some friends that wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, and nobody knew how. Nobody even understood that what it was. And this was back when fourth edition was in its quote unquote prime. And I reached out to a buddy of mine that I went to high school with and said, "What is this? How do I do this?" Because my friends, they want me to DM, and I don't even know what a DM is. And so, he sat me down and he explained the concept and what it all was, and I went, "Great." So we made character sheets. We had to write them down. This was before D&D Beyond. And that game sizzled out after 3 sessions.
Yeah.
I tried again a year later with a different group of friends. That fizzled out after 1 session. Tried again a year after that with another group of friends. That fizzled out after about 5 sessions. And then I stopped playing because I kind of ran out of friend groups. And then, back in 2018, I went through a pretty bad breakup that was, taking up all of my time in the relationship. And once I lost that relationship, I had nothing. And so I went on to Meetup, that old app that now costs money for some reason, and Dungeons and Dragons. And I found a group and I started playing with them. And then I kind of found my niche, and I found people and I found friends, and I reached out even to that old friend from high school and playing a game with him now, and it's fantastic to be able to reconnect and find new connections within this one game, this one concept of something.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Starting back in high school and then losing it after college, and then picking it back up 5 years later, and then continuing on. This has definitely gotten me through probably the worst parts of my life, and
Sure.
it's kind of where I hope doing stuff like this shows people there are ways to do it. There are safer ways to get through those issues and those things. But no, I do feel you there. It's when you kind of lose all those friends groups, you're like, how do I reconnect and whatnot? And Dungeons and Dragons is such an easy way to find new people. Everybody tells me you're such an extroverted person when you're around people like that. I said, yeah, but it's the people I want to be around. It's the people that talk the same language that we speak, and they understand, and they have that creative mindset. Put me in a normal room with normal people, and I'm just gonna be quiet and listen, and I might have a couple cordial conversations, but it's not going to be anything like throwing me in the middle of Gen Con where there's 70,000 people and I can talk to anybody because they all talk the same language.
Oh, absolutely.
But no, I completely agree with what you've been through and where you've been and how it's, where it's come to now, because now it's to the point where you're not only are you benefiting from it yourself, but now you're giving back to the community, which is really what this is all about. So
yeah, I think the one best piece of advice I ever got during all of this was a buddy of mine, kind of off the cuff. I asked, I've got all these D&D books I want to buy, and it's $500 worth of stuff, and they're on sale. It was D&D Beyond big sale and stuff. And I asked them, I was is this responsible for me? And somebody replied with, invest in your hobbies. And that hobby has now paid itself off 3 or 4 times over, and it's I'm beyond lucky to be in the situation that I'm in, and it was the idea, invest in your hobbies, is
it's your mental health, right? That's what it is. And it took me many years to figure that out. It took me a bunch of having kids and doing the family life for as long as I did, and kind of removing myself from that hobby and then going through a very hard time and having to leave my family for months on end for the military, where I realized that this is what kept me sane. So when I came home after the last time of leaving, I was like, I need this in my life forever. This is not something that goes away once I'm home. And yeah, now it's what it is now. So I completely agree. So yeah, let's see here. Let me make sure we don't. Anybody have any questions for Mike? I saw one. We'll pick that question up. I don't want to lose that one. So that I saw it. Where do you? What is What is your character's favorite food or drink?
Oh man, Wavoon. Oh god, what a good question. Oh, we don't do that in this game. We don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. Oh, let me pull up a random generator.
I will give you one in a second. Let me.
I could not tell you. I would have to say, just by the pure, nonsense that is Wavoon, just the good berry, because that's also something that fills you for the entire day as well.
True.
And like, dude will eat all 10 of those in a single sitting if he's taking enough damage. Yeah, I'm gonna stick my guns in this. I'm gonna say good berry.
Good berry.
Locking it in. That's my
Okay,
final
and
answer.
then next question. This one is from Don't Hurt Me. What is your favorite character you've ever made?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna go with, so there's a character in one of my current campaigns. Her name's Aurora, and she is, the sister of the big bad evil guy in the campaign. And she's wonderful because she is just this badass. And she was and this was a game that full of new players, and one fairly experienced player, and everyone else was new. And so she was kind of the introduction for all these new players and kind of what you could be and how you can operate within the game. And she was a ranger, which generally speaking is not a class that a lot of people select because rangers are really hard to play as, I think.
Right.
And
the way I tell people with rangers is you have to work with your game master, or it's not
yes.
a fun way to play.
Completely. But yeah, no, Aurora was this addition to the group that was a DMPC for a while, until the players made a mistake. They messed up, and then Aurora lost her life, and they all kind of had to come to terms with the consequences of the game and how they can lose NPCs and people they care about. And she eventually came back, story and plot armor and stuff, but her involvement in the game was really eye-opening for a lot of characters, and I adore her. She's got this, she's half-shaved head, green hair braided down over her shoulder, and just this really cool kick-ass character that I love playing with. And I love the reaction of my players whenever she comes back into the campaign for whatever reason. It's always, Aurora's back. Oh, thank God she's here, but she can help us. Like, in these little moments that makes her feel wanted and needed by the players, and that makes me, the DM, feel really good about the choices I've made with this character and the plot and the arcs that we're going on, and how she can help and assist in whatever way she can.
Nice. No, that is unique, and I love the fact that the character, is not only the character you're enjoying playing, but your party is really enjoying having the character around. Wow, we're getting blasted with questions. Hold on, let me get a couple more in here. I thought I saw another one. What is the craziest family heirloom? I don't know.
I'm not sure I understand the context of that one.
Yeah, I'm a little unsure on that one too.
Give me more context, please.
What are you saying? Like, what is their, is there a trinket or something that the character carries around? What are we looking at for here? Wait for more context on that one. Coming back to that one. Oh, yes. So is there a family heirloom or something that your character carries around with them that's unique?
A necklace. It's the necklace representing Eldith. It's the waterfall falling into or dropping into a pool of water. A fairly simple spellcasting focus, but Wavoon takes it with him wherever he goes. Hasn't left his neck since the start of the campaign. It was actually, I think, given to him by his father at the start of the campaign, and holds on to it and prays with it and does these little, character moments with it. So yeah, that would be I don't know if it's the craziest heirloom, but it's an heirloom.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna make a note of that one though, because funny enough, that is a one of those things that our artist will want to know, because she'll put that type of stuff in the artwork. So, and for all of our audience out there, if you didn't notice it already, on the tracker on the screen, it will show that the character has been 100% funded. So,
oh, no kidding.
We will be creating Wavoon for the audience, and here, once we step into our final section, we'll drop the Google Drive link so that everybody can go grab that character, because apparently you've made an impression on others, which is great.
Fantastic. Glad to hear it.
Shadow Lantern asked the question, do you prefer playing martial classes, half casters, or full casters?
Great question.
Or do you have a...
I like full casters, because, and my reasoning is so dumb. It's because I have found that a lot of my players struggle with full casters, and me having been a DM and kind of know 90% of the spells that already exist just by putting them into my generators and stuff, and I've read every feature and trait and everything. I like playing as full casters because I can help fill that hole that is sometimes left empty because other people struggle with it. And I like to think that I can do it effectively. But yeah, I like spellcasters because I like helping the rest of the group, which even relates back to me being a cleric. What DM has never started a game going, God, I wish we had a cleric in this party, so you guys, you fools out there in the party, you
are
hobos.
dying every 20 seconds.
Exactly. Right? So I love being that support that the other players in the group need, as well as the support that my players need with me as a DM. Beyond that,
fantastic. This one says, what is your least favorite D&D race, and why is it a Croca?
This is so okay. Yeah, so I will say this: the first time I ran into
this is an internal internal joke thing.
I don't think so. Who asked that question? I don't
believe
hurt me
so. 24 is the guy.
I don't think so. I'm not sure, but I will say at the very least. So Eric Okra, the first one I ever ran into, like, as a DM, and this is before spreadsheets. This is my first game, like, DMing back into 5th edition. One of the players was an Eric Okra, and they were all the party members were at the bar, getting to know each other, getting to know other NPCs and stuff. And this Eric Okra, he's like, I'm gonna step outside, and I'm gonna fly to the top, I'm gonna fly to the roof. And me, a new DM, was going, hey, you're not supposed to get flying abilities until like 6 or 7.
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell are you doing? And he goes, I'm gonna fly to the roof, and I was like, can you do that? And it totally threw me off, and I didn't understand what was happening. And then once I started to learn more about the races and stuff like that, I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. A little broken, but sure. Early level, as an Aerocrocket, you get that one ability and you get nothing else compared to the other races who get like 3 or 4.
Right.
But yeah,
but then you realize what fly does to combat, and it breaks things very quickly.
Right. But I definitely wouldn't say Aerocrocket are my least favorite race by any means. But it is a situation where I had a hard time reconciling with them as a concept. Yeah,
I can feel that. So, least favorite D&D race.
So my least favorite D&D race. This is kind of an inside joke. I hate bugbears. I don't know what it is.
Okay, that's fine.
I just can't.
I think they're strange. Like, have you looked at their features? I'm like,
yeah. Oh, I've read them.
double. You got like double elbows or something. Like, what's going on over here?
But they got that reach, which is really cool.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like the reach thing kind of throws me a little bit. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I can't explain it, but bugbears just rub me the wrong way. It's such a weird thing about. I once had a player, a friend of mine, was like, I'm gonna play as a bugbear, and I looked at him and said, "You better not. Get that out of
Just
here."
dead straight looking.
Right? Yeah, it's the one kind of hardline rule that I have in my games. I mean, not really, but it's a fun little
Right.
joke for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so um another interesting. This is about the character again.
Mhm.
Does Vavoon fear the end?
Wavoon fears failure.
Okay.
He doesn't necessarily fear the end or death or whatever it may be that they're referencing, but he fears not being able to make the difference that he kind of believes he's there to do. And if he's unable to do that, then what good is he really for? Um,
Ah,
so he does fear that in some aspect, yes.
so more so not achieving what he wants to achieve before his time is done on,
Exactly.
yeah, in the world. Okay, that's interesting. So not really so for the audience, not really fearing death, but fearing the sense of disappointment and failure for not achieving what he wants to achieve before he dies. I like that. Does anybody else have any more questions? If not, we're about 15 minutes left. And then, of course, we'll take questions at the end. But I really we're going to dive into what is considered part 3 of the show, which is roll for inspiration. Uh, so if I don't have any more questions, actually, if we do, we'll pick them up once we're done with the roll. So as we jump into roll for inspiration, I tell people this all the time. This is the core of what Tavern Talks originally was. It was to give people actual practical advice to help them better their games. And this can come in many different ways. So the first question I like to ask is there a special book, TV show, movie that you have that's like your favorite that you like to draw inspiration from, or that, it's just a very unique story that you enjoyed?
Not really. I find most of my inspiration for my games to come from like procedural cop shows, just because
Oh, okay.
those shows are really good at the short-term arcs that happen within an episode, and they're really good at the long-term arcs that go over an entire season. And I think the combination of those two within those types of shows is perfect inspiration for a DM who is kind of trying to understand how they want to get the story to move forward. And you don't even have to use like any of the aspects that happen in the show. It's just, if it's a cop procedural show, there's someone dead at the beginning, and they find out the murder at the end, and you can take maybe 5 or 6 scenes from it and go, I want to see if I can ignite that with my players somehow. And I think those types of shows are really inspirational for that.
For our audience, any of those shows that stand off the top of your head that we can kind of let people go check out?
Sure. I mean, Castle was a favorite of mine growing up. I'm in the middle of NCIS. I mean, all those generic CIA or
you're diving into one of my favorite shows right now, and I'm on the last season, is Blacklist.
Yes, Blacklist is a fantastic show. Yes,
fantastic version. Yeah, that's a good one.
And then anthologies. Love, Death, and Robots is beautifully done, and those stories. I have entire one-shots inspired by some of the episodes on that show.
What is it?
Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix.
I've never watched it.
Really, you're missing out.
I'm going to have to.
It's
check
it's
it
a
out.
Just short. It's a beautiful place for animators of all walks of life to kind of come together and create their own little shorts that are anywhere between 6 to 15 minutes long, and some of them can be really dark, and others are really lighthearted. And
so it just kind of shows the range, the wide range of things.
I mean, yeah, from 2-dimension, 3-dimension, and everything in between. It's wonderful. And there's so many great stories in there as well.
Awesome. Second question. What is for you, this is going to be a little different because you have a lot of homebrew because of the fact that you have spreadsheets. But what is a homebrew rule or thing that you do at your table that might not be seen at others, that people might want to push to their table?
Sure. Well, my spreadsheets, as wonderful as they are not good for homebrew rules. They work within the mechanics of the game, but I do have a handful of homebrew rules that I've kind of stolen from other creators throughout the
Yeah.
TTRPG community. One of them being the frighten rules and changing those a little bit. And instead of frightened being whatever it currently is in the DMG, it is now you as a character get to choose one of three options: fight, flight, or freeze. And fight means you attack the thing that frightened you, and you have disadvantage on the rolls, but you have to do it. Flight is you spend all your movement running away the next turn, and freeze is you're stunned for the next turn, or however long the frightened condition lasts.
Nifty.
And it gives players these choices that they can kind of sit down and go, okay, what will my character do in that moment? Am I fighting the thing that they fear the most, or am I fighting this tiny little doll that I just want to beat the crap out of?
Right.
Whatever it may be, it allows them to make that choice of and be a little bit more invested in how the character reacts to certain things.
I really like that one. I've never heard of that one. I've been doing this show for almost 2.5 years, asking these questions off and on. I've never heard that at all, and it's fantastic. For any of my players that are watching, that will be implemented. That is beautiful, and I love it.
Yeah, no, it's super fun for my games.
Flight, fight, or freeze. I like the uniqueness of the fact that there are going to be times where where frightening somebody would do the adverse effect.
Absolutely, yes.
No, I'm going to kill it.
Rage all the time.
Yeah,
they're fighting everything, but now they roll a disadvantage because they're so blinded by whatever they're afraid of that suddenly they're missing shots when they easily could have hit on the previous turn.
Right. No, I love that. Next question, and these two questions kind of can go together. They don't have to. But is there a TTRPG superstar or somebody in the industry that you look up to?
Oh my God. Matt Mercer, not even a question.
Yeah, we get that one a lot. But
of course you do. He's one of the greatest DMs that's ever existed, and his storytelling ability is a level on its own. Brendan Lee Mulligan, of course, also absolutely incredible. The rants that he is able to go on and the worlds that he's able to create in seconds is just extraordinary. Even Abria, in what she does, it is also just fantastic. All of them operate on this scale of being super organized and super chaotic, and I think Mercer and Mulligan are on the two opposite ends, while Iyengar is in the middle, but also raised up somehow. All of them do incredible jobs with the things that they are given within, Exandria or whatever other Dimension 20 games that they're running. Brilliant, all of them. And when it comes to players, obviously I mentioned Taliesin and Liam earlier. The two of them are incredible role players. I mean, Laura Bailey as well. And the things that they're able to do, and Marisha Ray's notes, oh my God, her notes are so extensive and so detailed, and just, she can put any puzzle together, no matter how long it takes you to give her the pieces. The entire Critical Role community, as well as Dimension 20 and most of the other TTRPG game spaces out there, all of them are inspirational in their own way and for what they're able to do and what they're able to create, and the fact that they're able to go on live and record themselves and put it out in the open. I mean, we have a running joke in one of my games of how we can't go live because we're gonna mess up somewhere. We're gonna say something dumb, and we're gonna get in trouble, and that's fine with us and in our personal games, but we'd rather keep that personal so we don't, accidentally hurt somebody. And it's just funny how incredible how these people are able to do that and feel confident in themselves and put that stuff out. They're all fantastic.
Oh yeah. Now this kind of brings us back down to life, right? So this is what I ask: is who would you recommend, or is there anybody within your community that you would recommend for the show? Because we are shooting for the superstars and we're trying to reach out to them to get them on the show, but there's also the thought process of getting everyday people who are just developing in the space. That the way I put it is there's two large pools right now. There's this pool, which is this is where your Brias, your Mercers, this little pool here, but then there's this massive pool of third-party content creators and other streamers and things like that that have developed just as much, in my opinion, as the big wigs. They just don't have the audience and they don't have the publicity behind it. Um, and they might not have the experience behind it. And we do have to realize, and I tell people this all the time because every once in a while I'll get this question. And for most people, I've only had this question 3 times in my entire career as a professional dungeon master. And that is, well, the game I'm looking for is similar to Critical Role. And it's like, well, first off, the charge I pay, like what I charge for people and what Matt Mercer would charge for people are way two different things. Second off, I'm not a professional voice actor. I've never done voice acting other than for some very small things. Um, and I don't have an audience of voice actors. I was like, so if you're not bringing the same level of voice acting experiences, let's say, like you said, Liam O'Brien or Taliesin Jaffe, then no, we're not going to have the same experience. Um, but uh, there are still a ton of people out there that are just incredible within this community. Is there anybody that kind of sticks off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of D&D TikTokers that I kind of quote unquote work with. I mean, I don't talk to these people face to face or even through text that often, if ever. But like Papa Lycan, that guy is
Never heard of it.
super fun. He makes monsters for different content creators on TikTok. He's got like 100 of them already made. I'm not one of them, unfortunately, but the monsters that he makes are all kind of based on the content that those creators make, and it's really interesting to watch and see how his brain works in creating these things. I mean, there's Postmodern Bard, who is fantastic on TikTok, and the videos that he can create are really like emotional. Like they have this kind of weight to them that feels really serious and kind of pulls you into the story a little bit more. Vex Wild on TikTok again. Her stuff is just, it's fun. It's good to watch, and her point of view on so many things is so kind of new and healthy, and all these and all the ways that she presents like situations from previous games, or talks to the community as if we're not children and we are adults playing an adult game, and her kind of treatment of that is very well received, I believe, by her followers and myself, of course.
Nice. Yeah, I think every single person you've mentioned I've never heard of, so now I have research to do.
Fantastic.
So, all right, and then this is always a fun one. Do you have a practical tip that you would give a player or game master?
Talk to each other. As simple as they can get. Oh my god, talk to each other. I cannot tell you how many games I regret running because I didn't talk to my players along the course of the game. It created our own little semi divides that hurt the game a little bit in certain ways, and I wish that I had talked to them more and picked up on those things. And there's nothing wrong with what they were doing, what I was doing, but it was just more of like one of my players I kind of dragged into the middle of the arc, and they didn't want to do that, and I didn't realize that until I was already in the middle of this, and I felt terrible, and it was one of those things where I wish I could have gone back and adjusted that for them, because I kind of ruined their game a little bit. And living life without regrets is very difficult, and so and it's just one of those things where even now I don't do that, and I should do that more. I'm gonna go talk to my players after this, of just reaching out and talking to them about random things. I have an example. One of my players has a very specific kind of interaction with the BBEG in one of our games, and that interaction has kind of caused them to be a little bit more paranoid about things. So now anytime that simple thing of like accidentally bumping into someone happens, they have to roll now to make a wisdom saving throw to avoid that paranoia of, oh my god, that's them in disguise, we have to kill them, we have to fight them, we have to do something in the middle of a busy city street. And it's just like they're trying to separate the idea of what is real, what isn't real, how paranoid am I being, and they have more than enough capability to avoid that. But that natural one comes around, 1 in 20 rolls, suddenly you've got a problem on your hands, and the other players are trying to pull you back, and it allows for kind of excellent role playing. But that would never have happened had they not reached out to me, or I hadn't reached out to them in the first place, to kind
Fantastic.
of build that off of the current game and their original backstory.
Yeah, I do. I completely agree with the communicating with your players. I also suggest that after an arc or during the middle of an arc, go back to your players. It doesn't have to be during the game. I prefer actually, personally, I don't do it during the game. I do it after the game. I'll message my players. What did you think of this? What did you think of that? What that's going to do is that'll build your next projection for the next step of the story, because you're going to see, if you just ventured through a giant dungeon and your players really weren't excited about it, don't go do another dungeon. Like, just take that concept and be like, okay, I need to shift the way things are looking.
Right.
And then finally, and sadly, because this is kind of the last question of the night, what's next for Waldo? For Waldo's guides? Because you did mention, and you don't have to share it. I'd be curious if you're willing to share. What is 11? What is the next? What's the next sheet?
Well, actually, very funnily, you kind of hinted at it already without realizing it. The next chapter is Legends and Myths. I hate my games that I need to come up with these lore things, these lore drops, and make lore heavy things, and I struggle with that so much to the point where now I'm thinking, I wonder if I can make a generator out of that. And I have plenty of ideas, and we're working on them and making them good. But yeah, lores and myths and artifacts, things like that, things that you can run into the game that just help explain why some things are the way they are. Either a battle between gods came through here, or maybe a god has kind of pissed off some people, or people have pissed off a god, or whatever it may be.
Right.
Just the Avatar: The Last Airbender, the idea of the two lovers and the cave. That is a beautiful bit of lore that is touched on one other time in the show.
Right.
But it's more than enough for people to just latch onto. I mean, everybody knows the song that goes with the cave.
Right.
It's one of those things where those tiny, minuscule bits of lore can feed an entire starving village.
Yeah. So I don't know how much you follow Sly Flourish and the Lazy Dungeon Master.
I do not.
Oh, okay. Well, then you need to go check that out before you step into this project.
Okay.
Because the way he builds his stuff that's part of the deal. So like every game, I fill out 10 different secrets or lore that can be found out throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of my prep, is coming up with those 10 secrets. And those can be given out in any way, shape, or form throughout the game. But I have those listed already now that I'm like, okay, while you're talking, this might come out or this might come out. And it could be anything from NPCs, world lore, local lore, mythology, anything you want it to be. But they're easy things to grab from that you don't have to think about. So that's kind of, I think if you used your spreadsheets and you add the Lazy Dungeon Master's preparation guide, I think your games are going to look a little different, but I think you're going to be able to do a little bit of prep generating, so then you're doing less generating during the show.
Hey, I will work all day and night if it means nothing gets done tomorrow.
So, like I said, and I know a lot of people don't like the Lazy Dungeon Master. They think that really, I think they need to rename it. Personally, I think lazy is a bad way to put it. Preparated Dungeon Master is the best way, in my opinion, because it sets up for so many opportunities without me pigeonholing my players to going one direction.
Sure.
And I'm like, that's the way I like it. And then because you're a big Brandon Lee Mulligan fan, you might want to go check out his YouTube video about the difference between sandboxing and railroading,
Okay.
because he has I think he called it the roller coaster, where it's like you're on a road, but it's bumpy and it changes and it shifts. And he's like, and so it's not exactly either. It's kind of that middle ground. And I think that's where a lot of dungeon masters nowadays live, which is a good thing because I don't think, though I will say that most railroads, in my opinion, tell amazing stories. Some of them will not tell the story that that your players will want to tell, and that's where the downfall comes from.
Yeah.
When you're not telling the same story your players want to tell. All right, well, it is technically the curtain is about to close. The bell is rung. Last call is up. So for our audience, this is when you get to ask those final questions for Mike before you never see him in the tavern again. No, I'm kidding. But hopefully we'll have Mike back here in a couple months or so.
Yeah, happy to come back anytime.
Surprisingly, though, we were at episode 75, and I've only had 2 people come back. So we're keeping our one person comes on it differently every episode as much as we can.
Pretty good.
Has any of your campaigns ever gone to plan?
What a silly question. Not a chance. Not even a little bit. Oh my god, no. I have never gone a session go to plan. Like, I have run one-shots where things went off the rails immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And those were hardwired to not go off the rails. Like, they were the most railroaded things on a train, and my players got off the train and stole a plant.
Dove off the train.
Yeah, like, it was amazing. They came back to the train, but, like, they ran off.
We've got a train heist. Okay, awesome. I'm jumping off. What?
Yeah, perfect.
Not sure where we're going to go with this, but let's go.
Yeah, so no, never. And I'm proud of that. I wouldn't, if my answer to that was yes, I've had games go exactly as planned. I have failed as a DM. I have failed as an inspirer for my players. I have failed in some capacity, and that's not something that I want.
I've had sessions go unplanned. I have never had campaigns go unplanned, ever.
Well, then you failed on those sessions, and I have no problem telling you that.
That's fine. My players did not complain about those sessions, so I'm not too upset about those. Another question: if you could change one thing in Dungeons and Dragons, what would it be?
Oh, if I could change one thing in Dungeons and Dragons, what would it be? I actually have an answer to this, but I can't remember what it is. Oh man, there are a couple of things in the game that just suck that I wish I could change. And I
mean,
think
you're the dungeon master, but
well, yes, but like that involves like real thought and putting in effort and stuff. I mean, I think I would change the occasional mechanical thing, but those are all just homebrews. But like any big major thing that I would change, God, I think I would make more classes. I know that's probably not like even possible considering how many classes there are and how much ground they all cover, especially with their subclasses.
Right.
But like, yeah, that's a really good question and a really difficult one for me to answer. I'm not sure that I can, unfortunately.
All right. I know this one says don't answer that, but I don't see why not. What's your thought on goblins?
Goblins are fine. Goblins are great.
It's simple.
Yeah,
they're simple ones to play with. Anybody can.
Yeah, goblins are wonderful NPCs and they're wonderful PCs as well. I have a goblin player right now, and they are, 20 years old, super old in goblin years, and are just walking around this old woman with a turtle on their head. It's wonderful.
With a turtle on their head?
Yeah, she's got a turtle on her head. She's one of the best characters I've ever seen.
That's awesome. Well, Mike, it was a pleasure to have you on the tavern tonight. Thank you for the audience for bringing Wavoon to life. For anybody that's still here, that is the Google Drive link. So what this does for everybody, to make sure you hold on to that. And after the episode, I'll contact our artist, give her the links to where the character was talked about. She's going to use her amazing artistic skills to bring the character to life, and then we'll drop that character in a token version of that into that little folder there. If you want to support us and continue to help us grow this, we have a Patreon where you can get all of the characters, and it's at the lowest tier, but we just give it away as part of the thank you for helping us out and keeping the lights on for the show. Next, this is technically the first show of the year for us at Misfits. So if you've never seen our stuff before, we run shows on Sundays and Wednesdays. How to support Mike. You can support Mike over on his Patreon, and you can get that through his website, which I will link below.
wallthosguide.com. Very simple.
Yep, wallthosguide.com. Like I said, and hopefully, if you guys have never seen us before, you'll come hang out with us on Sunday. We play the One Ring RPG by Free League Publishing. We've been running in that world for about a month and a half now. And we're going to continue doing that for a few more months. And next week we have a different type of guest, which I'm excited to, because we haven't really ever had this type of guest before. They are crafters and developers of Renaissance gear. So Fell and Fair, they're going to be coming here. We'll see what character they bring to the story. And yeah, we'll see what that conversation looks like. They are more, it looks like they're more in the live action role play, but we'll see what kind of TTRPG experience they have, and see what fun we can get into next week. So until then, hope everybody is having a wonderful start to their year. Come hang with us on Sunday, and we'll see you guys all next week. Have a good night.